Hello and welcome to the cellar. In this episode, I will show you how I built my first workbench. It's quite a long process, so I hope I can condense it enough. The last video was rather successful. I don't know if it is the new format, which was a bit shorter than usual, or the new playlist that I'm starting, but I will try to keep it as short as I can. So I wanted to build the central workbench in the middle of the cellar. It will be a simple construction consisting of 3 legs assembly, cross-braced, held together by stretchers, and the workbench top will be 2 layers of OSB, and there will be 1 layer of OSB at the back of the workbench. As an added feature, I wanted to have a modular system consisting of a base and plates, which I could switch around my different workbenches. I don't have all of the uses of this system in mind yet. I think it's one of the interesting things about a modular system is that you'll discover uses in time. So we'll see how useful it proved to be because it was quite a headache to make work. But first, I needed a stand for my bench grinder, so I used some leftover materials I had from all the work that happened in the cellar. This time there was no design, I was kind of winging it when it came along, and it's nice to do that sometimes, it's kind of liberating. So this was a good opportunity to test my modular idea, so I tried to use it as a prototype and I made a first base for this tool system. And after the stand was finished, I could test what it would look like with a movable bench grinder. So the plate is held down by 4 pieces of angle iron screwed into the OSB, and it's relatively sturdy. I was pretty happy with this prototype, so I thought it would work for the workbench. I started cutting the steel to length. I used 18 meters all in all for this project, which is more than half the load I got the last time. So I need to better calculate how much steel I will use on each project, and also try to optimize the cuts to minimize any offcuts. And I need to do that ahead of time because when I'm set up at the circular saw, I have end stops to cut the pieces at the same length. So it's not the best time to be thinking of optimizing the cuts. Most of the cuts were pretty straightforward, 90 degrees corner, but there were 3 cross braces pieces I had to cut at an arbitrary angle. It's about 36.3, so I printed again a template which I used to scribe my marks. It took me 10 minutes from the CAD model to the printed template, so I really think it's worth it and I will do that for all my angle cuts in the future. So after all the steel was cut, I started cleaning it. So I'm using some Scotch-Brite pads and household detergent, and it's working quite well to remove this kind of oil grease there is on the square tubes. It took me 2 hours to clean all of the steel, which is a bit tedious, but in the end the steel is very, very clean. I don't know if I should try and find some other products or process. It's working well, it's a bit tedious, but good result in the end. Next step was to tack the legs assembly together. For this, I splurged a little and I bought myself some fireball squares. It's a bit pricey, but they are very well made. Those are tools that will last a generation, and they've proven very useful for this process. They are not a silver bullet though, you have to be careful how you use them. But I'm happy with the purchase and it helped me quite a lot, especially later in the build. So tacking the 3 legs assembly went all right. Quite a bit of setup, trying to make the 3 assembly similar in dimension together. But at the end of that, I realized I did not properly test the height of the final workbench. I was aiming for 95 centimeters, and I tested it. it was a little too high. So I decided that 92 centimeters was all right. So I had to cut a bit of the legs, which once they're tacked together was a bit more trickier than I wanted to. But I managed to do that with the miter saw. Turned out it wasn't that easy, because here I couldn't use the clamp, and also the bead were interfering with the piece laying flat, so I put some discarded welding rod to give me a bit of lift. Once this mess was cleared up, I could fully weld the assembly together, and that also went all right because it's pretty easy horizontal welds. So by then, I felt pretty confident in the process, but I had only done the easy part. Attaching the 3-legs assembly with the stretchers together proved a bit trickier. So I started by welding the stretchers to one of the leg assembly, which was straightforward enough. I made good use of the 3-axis square, but then trying to attach the 2 assembly together proved a bit trickier. So it involved quite a bit of setup and lining up, which I guess could have been better conceptualized in the design phase again. And also, during this process, I attached a stretcher in the wrong place, which I had to later remove and to tack it back in place. So, it's starting to get a bit tricky with the space. I mean, there is that on the other side, and yeah, I don't think I'll be able to build the other workbenches here. I'm standing the whole thing on 3 points, 1 here and 2 on there. So hopefully I'm on a plane, and I hope that by constraining with those 2 lengths of square tubing and this one here, I am having a plane here on the top and also a reference at the back. And I'll have to tack this, and this, and remove this one, which shouldn't be here, should be at the back, because this is the front of the workbench with the braces going on this direction to take the force from the front of the workbench. So after I cleared this mistake, I could fully weld the stretcher to the legs assembly. For the welding, you can see that I'm using a hose, so it's connected directly to the ventilation ducts I have in the back cellar. It was a bit more efficient than not using it, but it's not strong enough, unfortunately, so I have to think about a better ventilation system, an air filtration unit I need to build for the next project, because the ventilation isn't strong enough when I'm doing continuous welding. After it was fully welded together, I made some tabs from angle iron, which I cut and drilled, cleaned, and could install. Those will be used to attach the OSB from below and from the back, which is a way better system than what I did with the steps, so I'm learning. So I think I'll take a break. I have put all of my thingy here. So that's nice. I keep touching the things that are way too hot. Yeah, so I'm still pretty happy now that it's coming together. I haven't checked any measurements because I don't want to break my heart, but just for lols, let's see if I make it into the edit. Okay, 163.5. Oh, look at that. That's not too bad, actually. The last step of the steel structure was to weld my patent-pending modular tool switching base system. I had 2 options. One, I could try and build the same way I built my first prototype, which is by using a wood form. or I could try to copy the prototype I had made earlier. And I thought that trying to build using the form could introduce some mistakes because the prototype I made is 1 millimeter short in one dimension compared with the other, which is okay as long as everyone is a bit the same. And I think it's because the form is compressing a bit too much when I'm clamping it. So I decided to try and copy the prototype instead of doing it all over again using the form, which led to another crazy setup with a lot of clamps. I'm staggering the square tubes in a kind of spiraling pattern. So the length of the square tube are not important. It's only the internal dimension which is important. And I'm not welding the corners. I am welding only the side. So I hope that it doesn't then deform the square. And I think it's working well. I'm still keeping square after the welding. So I will keep using this process. I then fitted the square onto the workbench surface. I could have used better clamping. I had only one rail and the other corner was a bit too high, which led to a lot of grinding afterwards. So again, I'll try to learn from this mistake. But the welding went okay. I did some full welds because there will be a lot of force in this area, so I needed to stay in place. I attached the last angle iron tabs, and that was it for the steel structure. Let's just try to put the tool in. But, I mean, yeah, not too bad, not too bad. I'll have to think of a locking mechanism, but right now it's okay. Then I could work on the adjustable fits. So those are 3D printed and they are hinging around an 8mm threaded rod with 2 nuts, and it will allow me to adjust leg height. But I realized that my printed orientation was wrong because it would put the load pass directly perpendicular to the layer lines, which is a weak area in any 3D print. So I tested it so that it would break easily. And I printed another batch. This time I printed in a better orientation with the 3D perimeters better aligned with the forces they will experience from the workbench. But I did not test fit it in a square tube. And with this new orientation, the fit was quite tight and yeah, it led to some painful moments. Fortunately, they are all inside the legs now, but yeah, it was fun. Now I was done with the subframe, so I could start working on the wood part. Easy enough, I used 4 sheets of OSB, 2 for the backboard, 1 for the bottom and 1 for the top, and 2 for the workbench top, which will be layered together. I cut the first bench top 2 dimension and then traced it around so I have an exact copy for the second layer. I then could glue it up together, which unfortunately my camera did not record, but as you can see I used all the clamps I had available and some screws which I removed afterwards. But the glue up went okay. I had a good squeeze out on the perimeter, so I'm happy with that. I could then make some place for the workbench and I moved it from the back cellar to its final position. Once the bench was in place, I took some time to level it. Once that was done, I could present the workbench top and the backboard and try to make an offset cut to fit against the irregular wall. So I traced the cut I needed to do. I cut the main portion with the jigsaw and then I had to fiddle around with some chisels, and there were a lot of back and forth presenting the piece, marking it, cutting a bit, etc. During this process, the workbench moved a little, which means I'm not as tight to the wall as I would have hoped. So this process took a while. Once I was satisfied with the feed up against the wall, I could make the groove to place the angle iron trim on the front and side of the workbench. I did that with my router, which went pretty easily, and then I could cut the angle iron to length at a 45-degree angle and weld it up. So to weld the two angle iron pieces together, I used some 1.6 millimeters welding rod, and it went okay. I'm happy with the process. I'll do that again. It wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. And then I could install the trim. So I used some polyurethane glue and some screws as I did with the steps. And this also went without too much trouble. And once everything was cut to length, fitted to the wall, I had the trim in place, I could varnish the workbench top and the backboard. So I did that, pretty easy also. I installed it back. And then it was time to do the tricky bit of this process. Time to cut out the plate from the workbench and sort everything out so I could have this wonderful modular system. I started by installing the angle iron tabs, which will index into the square base. So that was easy. Then I traced my lines to have my cuts. So the goal is to have the cuts in the middle of the square tubing. That went all right. And then I decided to use jigsaw because I don't think I have better tools to do that. But I tried to be clever and I tried to set up a fence for the jigsaw to ride along, which was the mistake. And I think unfortunately, I already did that a couple years ago and I did not learn my lesson then. I have learned my lesson now. Because with the fence, I don't know the mechanics exactly, but the blade started wandering outside the line and it led to some really ugly cuts and I was quite a bit miffed about this. Yeah, it doesn't matter for the functionality of the things. Just matter for my pride. I was happy with my process and workmanship up until then. It was the last step and yeah, it was a bit hard to take. Look at that. Obviously this one is way better because, I don't know, this one is awful also. So the lesson is I should have done it by hand and not try to have a fence. To change my mind, I worked on the electrical sockets I had intended for the workbench, so I had some cable reserved on the side, so I put that all in place, which also took longer than expected. So below I have a junction box here, which I'll be using for other stuff, but later. And we have this, which isn't too pretty, but from the top it looks kind of neat. So I came back a bit more cooled and I decided to try and correct my mistake. So this time I used the router, which is well suited to work with a fence. Set up something in order to rectify and make this a bit prettier and a bit more functional for the future, because it's a bit of a shame that it looks bad, but also if I have some other plates, I need them to fit right in. So I need to straighten this out and this will be my template for the other plates. This one will fit in, and this, if this is a bit oversized, this one will fit in other workbenches emplacement as well. So yeah, I'm just gonna try and shave and remove, not a lot, it's like I drifted this way, and this one is pretty good actually, so I don't know, maybe I'll just take a close pass. I need here 1.5 centimeters, so that it's at the middle of this beam. Also the back, I think will, yeah, definitely need something. Okay, so it's done. The gaps are now way bigger than they were, of course. And but I am happy with, not exactly the result, but I'm happy with having fixed my mistake and having worked better than I did yesterday. This is it, the final product, a bit more workbenchy. So my corner here, happy with that. I'm happy with the way I attached the boards to the structure. Happy with the electrical outlets. Happy with the adjustable fits, even though it took a while to get them in there. Happy with some of the welds. Some are not great, but I know why, and I'll keep improving. Also, we can finally see what it will look like from behind. I think there is an opportunity to make a shelf, which I'll make, and some accessories also, a light and stuff to hang my towels and stuff. But this looks, I think, looks finished from here. Here the fit isn't 100% perfect, but it's okay. And here I could have cut this board a bit longer. I knew that, but I was a bit lazy, and I cut it the same length as the bottom board. And yeah, so it's a bit annoying, but I will place a lamp here, I think. I have this vise I want to put on a plate, and this lamp also. And yeah, I'm happy with this is very, very solid. And when I was wailing on it with the chisel to cut the square here to shave my line, it didn't budge. So it's great. And I've learned a lot, and I will use that to make a replacement for this and to make this one. Yeah, I'm happy with the sockets also. I think it's pretty clean installation. And yeah, so I think I'll work on having a lot of tool holders at the back. This is more of a bench intended for doing electronics and small projects, but we'll see how I end up using it. To conclude, I'm pleased with the result despite my many mistakes, but it's by far the best workbench I've ever had, and it's the best workbench I've made, that's for sure. So I have good news for the channel. I have been fired, and I'm announcing now that I will go full-time. No, it's not 2014 anymore. It's still good news for the channel because I'm expecting some free time in the next couple weeks and months. I have no idea what will happen to me next work-wise. I'm okay, my situation is okay. Thankfully, I'm in France. So the next video will be more about workbenches and stuff about this workshop. I also work on some plates. I have some restoration for lamps to do, for a vise, stuff around this kind of area. Anyway, thank you if you stuck with me till the end, and I will see you in the next one.